There is a moment in a man's life when something subtle begins to die inside him. Not kindness, not morality, but the old reflex that made him constantly seek approval. He notices it first in small situations. Someone interrupts him, and for the first time he does not rush to prove himself. Someone asks for something he does not want to give, and instead of inventing an excuse, he simply says no. The world does not collapse, but the atmosphere changes. Because most men are taught to remain harmless. They are taught that politeness protects them, that softness earns loyalty, that constant accommodation will eventually return respect. But reality rarely rewards permanent softness. Reality studies hesitation, then exploits it. And that is why the first sign of becoming dangerous is the death of the nice guy. For years, many men confuse kindness with weakness because they have never separated choice from compulsion. A truly kind man can refuse. A weak man often cannot. He says yes because conflict frightens him more than self-betrayal. But once that fear begins to fade, a different presence emerges. You stop apologizing for boundaries. You stop explaining every refusal. You realize that being useful to everyone often means becoming valuable to no one. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this clearly. People respect firmness long before they admire softness. The moment your no becomes simple, your entire position in the world changes. The second sign is emotional stillness. Most people are controlled by reaction. A delayed message changes their mood. A careless insult steals their peace. A single rejection can occupy their thoughts for days. Their emotions remain exposed to anyone willing to pull the right string. But the dangerous man begins noticing a pause forming between event and reaction. Something happens, and instead of immediate emotion, there is silence first. Observation first. Calculation first. This is not numbness. It is discipline. Machiavelli admired not only force but control. The lion mattered, but so did the fox. Force without control becomes predictable. Calm under pressure becomes unsettling because people lose access to your internal state. Manipulators rely on reaction. They provoke because reaction gives them leverage. But when anger arrives and you remain composed, when pressure rises and your tone stays measured, their influence weakens. Emotional control is often mistaken for coldness by people who benefit from your emotional availability. The third sign is the removal of the pedestal. A man begins seeing people differently. Authority loses its sacred glow. Fathers become flawed men. Bosses become insecure personalities with titles. Public figures become strategic actors rather than extraordinary beings. Even desire changes shape, because attraction without illusion is very different from worship. This shift feels uncomfortable because illusions often made life emotionally easier. But maturity always strips illusion first. Machiavelli shocked his era because he described rulers exactly as they were: ambitious, insecure, calculating, vulnerable. He refused to dress human nature in moral decoration. And once you begin doing the same, something changes in your posture. You stop freezing around authority because you finally see ordinary motives beneath expensive clothing, confident voices, and social status. You cannot negotiate with a god, but you can negotiate with a human being. The dangerous man understands that titles do not erase psychology. The fourth sign is weaponized silence. Most people reveal themselves constantly. Their plans are public before they are built. Their emotions are posted before they are processed. Their ambitions are announced long before they become real. But a dangerous man becomes quieter. Not secretive from fear, disciplined from awareness. He understands that information is leverage. The less people know about your intentions, the less they can predict your movement. Silence creates psychological gravity. People begin filling your silence with their own assumptions. They wonder what you know, what you think, what you are building. And often, uncertainty creates more influence than explanation ever could. Machiavelli knew that appearances matter, but overexposure destroys mystery. The man who constantly broadcasts becomes easy to read. The man who listens becomes difficult to move. The fifth sign is the integration of aggression. Every man carries aggression, but most are trained to fear it inside themselves. They mistake suppression for virtue. But suppressed aggression does not disappear. It turns into resentment, passivity, bitterness, hesitation. The dangerous man learns something different. Aggression must be trained, not denied. This is why physical competence changes psychology so deeply. Strength training, endurance, combat discipline, these do more than alter the body. They alter internal certainty. A man who knows he can endure pressure rarely needs to perform toughness. Weak men often appear loud because doubt is noisy. Strength becomes quiet because certainty removes the need for display. Machiavelli lived in a world where rulers without force became dependent on those who had it. He understood that peace means little if it exists only because you lack the capacity to resist. The sixth sign is ruthless prioritization. Most people leak time everywhere. Endless distraction, endless opinions, endless small emotional expenditures that leave nothing substantial behind. But once a man becomes sharper, he begins guarding time like territory. He notices how casually people surrender hours to noise and then wonder why life does not move. He begins asking a harder question before giving energy anywhere. Does this strengthen me, weaken me, sharpen me, or scatter me? This changes everything. He consumes less noise. He argues less. He focuses more. Average people often interpret this as distance because they are accustomed to constant availability. But discipline compounds invisibly. And invisible compounding becomes frightening when results begin appearing faster than explanation. The seventh sign is acceptance of solitude. This is where many stop, because solitude reveals what distraction hides. Most men fear silence because silence exposes the parts of themselves they have avoided for years. So they surround themselves with constant noise, constant conversation, constant stimulation. But dangerous men eventually stop fearing silence. They begin using it. Solitude becomes clarity. Ideas sharpen there. Decisions strengthen there. Identity stabilizes there. Machiavelli wrote some of his clearest work after losing political power, in exile, away from court, away from applause. Isolation gave him vision because noise no longer diluted perception. And this is why solitude becomes dangerous. Once you no longer fear standing alone, social pressure loses power over you. Approval weakens. Rejection weakens. Even exclusion weakens. That is the final pattern all seven signs reveal. Not cruelty, not domination, but structure. A man becoming dangerous is not becoming monstrous. He is becoming difficult to manipulate because he is internally organized. He says no without guilt. He reacts slowly. He sees clearly. He speaks less. He trains strength. He protects time. He no longer fears solitude. And that is exactly why the room changes when he enters. Because most people can sense, even before words are spoken, when someone no longer depends on them to remain stable. That presence cannot be faked for long. It can only be built.